send a message out to the other black and law enforcement agencies across this country. This is the time to step up and speak out against the things that we've been talking about for years. And we all know we have felt the pressures of our administrations, stifling us from talking and speaking out against injustices in our community. We're in a paradigm shift right now. We're in reform right now. The DOJ has been in close to 30 cities talking about injustices for our citizens in our community. Timing is everything when we talk about this. So I'm encouraging you to step up and step out and support your community, because the Constitution says we the people, not we the police, and we have to take our community in consideration. For reform to take place, they need us. The black officer is important because we know injustice, we know racism, we know discrimination, we know sexism. We have been all victim of that ourselves. So let's join together, brothers and sisters, across the country, organizations, black organizations across the country, and join Cleveland and Philadelphia and the National Black Police Association in coming forth and speaking out and letting our voices be heard in our community, because we've been sitting back too long and the community has been waiting for us to say something. Now's the time, folks. Join us and make this thing happen, and let the Creator shine upon us and give us the strength to move forward and speak for our community whose voices much too often has not been heard. Thank you.
To everyone here, I begin in the name of Allah, who we call God, even though we know that name is synonymous with many names, and I ask Almighty God to guide my heart and to guard my tongue. We are thankful to Almighty God for those who have assembled here to stand shoulder to shoulder and to get the back of the men who show and the women who show moral, straightforward courage, as opposed to being moral cowards every day. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the clergy. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the men and women in blue of all colors, of all religions, of all creeds. We stand shoulder to shoulder in a coalition that is interreligious, that is also multicultural, it is also intergenerational. And that is what really America looks like. But we also stand here as people who understand the importance of justice in a city like Cleveland. So before I go forward, let us just refresh ourselves with a little black history lesson.
Take your time, brother.
July 23rd, 1968, Cleveland, Ohio experienced the worst urban rebellion in the history of riots and rebellions in the history of this country. But out of the smoke and out of the dust and out of the soot and the ashes that took place, an organization called the CPPA emerged. The Cleveland Police Patrol Association, formed in the back of a driveway behind what was then the 5th District. Just a little black history moment right here. And out of that organization, there were men who emerged that dedicated themselves to white nationalism and white supremacy, as opposed to justice and serving citizens as they were meant to be, which are what we call protectors and servers of the community. Just a little black history lesson here. But out of the roots and out of the below the root suppression and oppression and injustice and inequality and white supremacy and racism, out of that root and below the root emerged the Black Shield. Personified in the personage of a woman, mind you, Miss Jean Clayton. Y'all remember that name, right? You remember that name. It emerged out of the leadership and the moral courage of a man named Fred Johnson, and many other who are standing here with us today, who dedicated themselves to making sure that diversity within the police department, that justice within the police department, that equality within the police department, that leadership within the police department, that mentorship within the police department, that leadership would be across the board, but it would be epitomized in those who come out of the black experience. So I'm not surprised that we stand here today still dealing with the after effects of white supremacy and racism, structural and intergenerational. And the reason why we're standing here today is to say, not only should you step down, you might want to think about a whole new career and step all the way up out of that thing. You see what I'm saying? Because what you've done is you poisoned the atmosphere of young police officers. You made it a toxic environment to work in. You poisoned relationships that have been built over the last 50 years with people who have attempted to bridge the gaps, to build bridges, to turn to one another and not on one another, to develop diversity programs, to develop leadership programs, to develop mentorship programs, to develop programs to make sure that Cleveland would come out of the ashes of July 23rd, 1968 and rebuild the city. Keep in mind that Carl Stokes, the first black elected mayor of a major city. Keep in mind his brother Louis Stokes. Keep in mind all of the leadership and all of the first that came out of July 23rd, 1968. And what has emerged and what has produced the personality of a Loomis that has the audacity and the moral cowardice to stand with a man who has basically said that he's a rapist. He's a man who has basically said that he has committed sexual assault. A man who stands by the words that come out of his mouth, stating that he defends the right to chase Mexican Americans and other immigrants around this country to build a wall. A man who stands in deceit and disgust and moral cowardice to stand up and say that Muslims need to be looked at and need to have a card or ID card or something like that. You better go get an ID card, sucker, because we're not getting no ID cards. The other thing about this is really on a whole another realm of this, and I want my ministers to really look at this. The fact that this man could claim to come here and stand at a church on Mayfield and listen to someone use the word and say that all black people are Negroes gonna live and die Negro, and to sit back and laugh and besmirch that, we're calling it what it is. So I hope I'm not sugarcoating nothing. You understand? I got a mother. I have daughters. I respect the mothers and the daughters and the aunts and the nieces and all of these women that are standing here. They have to stand there and listen to that garbage that's spewed out of his mouth. But just like Donald Trump, Loomis is also a product of something. Because you see, somewhere along the way, somebody's been nodding their head at Loomis's pronouncement. Somewhere along the way, that executive board has been kind of fueling his mouth to say things that he's going to regret. Somewhere in the environment, brothers and sisters of the clergy, as we know, sometimes people, don't look at that movie Frankenstein the right way. It wasn't Frankenstein the monster that was the problem. It was Dr. Frankenstein that created the Frankenstein that killed Dr. Frankenstein as it all ended. So I'm going to end this right now. This is not a game. This is serious business, and we're not playing. And when you hear it coming from us the way we're bringing it, you know it's not about a joke. So resign from the position. You can resign from the police department. We're asking the Justice Department to call for his resignation. We're asking the judge, a federal judge, to remove him that position. Then we're going to call all our brothers and sisters who are white in CPPA who had the audacity to vote in favor of an appointment of a man that endorsed one of the worst presidential candidates, in fact, the worst presidential candidate that has ever graced this so-called election process. Assalamu alaikum.
Well, first, I'd like to thank the clergy for coming out and support in this event, the community activists, the councilmen, members of the Black Shield, and concerned residents in this city for coming out in support in unison in these critical times in our city and our country. We stand here together in demonstration with deep concern for the recent endorsement of Donald Trump for President of the United States of America. Although we know the Constitution gives everyone the right to vote, which makes it a personal decision, but when quasi-military organizations become involved in politics, as a society, we begin to tread on thin ice and threatens the very fabric of our country. The landscape must be considered when making such a decision. I stand here today representing the Black Shield Police Association to make it clear to the CPPA that the endorsement of a presidential candidate who is reckless, has a history of being racist, and has continued to insult people from different ethnic backgrounds and religion is totally unacceptable to many Black, white, and Hispanic men and women who serve on the Cleveland Police Department. Our union should not be partaking in this process, and endorsing anyone in this volatile time in our country is totally unacceptable. We should be building bridges and not walls.
Yeah.
Most of all, I want to make it clear to the community from which we serve and took an oath to protect and serve, and to serve us in a way that this city has played a part in making it.
Make it plain.
For me to stand here and folks like myself and many other nationalities, I want the community to know
Yes, sir.
that I repeat this, we do not condone this support for this endorsement, especially from whom a person that has been accused of rape 3 times, includes a 13-year-old girl, and makes reference to sexual assault and impositions, which in my book is a crime.
That's
Yes,
right.
sir.
That's right.
And for an organization to be responsible for investigating people of that nature, I think it's very hypocritical and downright wrong. We have a duty and a moral obligation to speak up for the women on this police force. We have a duty and a moral obligation to speak up for women in our community. We have a duty and moral obligation to speak up for women in our families. So we are calling on the CPPA
Yes, sir.
to rescind this endorsement of Donald Trump. And I think by doing so, it will send a clear message to our community who pays tax dollars in return, all right, for fair treatment, for responsibility of police officers, for respect. And I think it will send a message that we are willing to be sensitive and willing to take part of the improvement relationships of this community.
Yes, sir.
I think the African American officers play a great part in reform. It is needed. Who's best to speak out against injustices,
Yes, sir.
discrimination, racism, sexism, for those who are ones who are victims of it themselves. So we stand here today to show and tell the community that there are officers on this police force, white, Black, and Hispanic,
Yes, sir.
that does not agree with this endorsement. And we want to stand by the community, and we want to do our part in helping reform. This is critical times, and we must take that into consideration before we start making rash decisions in this election.
Yes, sir.
And at this time, I would like to introduce the head of the NAACP, Mike Nelson.
All year, talking about police brutality, talking about police abuse. We've even been talking about the fact that our police department is under a federal consent decree because of violence against unarmed citizens. But today we stand here united for a special purpose. And I want to just acknowledge the strength that Lynn Hampton and the Black Shield Police Association is showing by not only going out on the limb every day to protect and serve us, but also for standing against this stupid and illogical endorsement by the union that represents them. I want all of us to give Lynn a hand and the Black Shield. Cleveland Police Department is a diverse organization. The CPPA is a diverse organization. It represents men, women, blacks, Hispanics, whites, Asians, who are all part of that organization. Yet and still, a small group within that organization decided that it would be appropriate to endorse a gentleman, endorse a man who has violated, who has embarrassed, who has attacked every group that I just identified within their ranks.
All right, speak, brother.
How could Mr. Loomis and his executive committee and the 216 people look you in the face, the citizens of this community, and say, we want to protect your rights, and we're going to endorse a person who has been accused by the Justice Department and found liable? He settled the case. He settled a case, two cases of housing discrimination because he would not rent to black people. Yet and still, this executive committee of the CPPA and its president said they were going to ignore that. Well, we told them, think about what you're doing. You are now, Steve Loomis is the face of the Cleveland Police Department. I don't care how you cut it. He is the person that is not the chief, not the safety director. It is Steve Loomis who is the face of the Cleveland Police Department. He has great influence, but what he lacks is great judgment.
Take your time, brother. Take your time.
This organization of citizens, this corporate body of citizens who come from every rank, from activist community, the police department, politics, the ministry, we are calling upon Mr. Loomis's board. I think it takes 10 board members to convene a special meeting so they can reconsider. I think it's 10 executive committee board members that it takes for them to convene a call board meeting for the purpose of doing one thing: correcting a major mistake, a major embarrassment, another blight on the city of Cleveland. And that's that endorsement of Donald Trump. We understand that there are people within that organization who have the will. And we want to encourage them by this August body, by this body's presence, to give them the backbone and courage to convene such a meeting so they can rescind that endorsement. Now, what additional ammunition do they need than the embarrassments of the last couple of weeks with their candidate has come out and admitted that he was going to fill up women, that he was going to take advantage of women, that he would have inappropriate conduct toward women, and he did it proudly. What more do they need? We believe that the evidence is there, that the basis is there, and we're calling upon the officers of the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association to convene immediately to rescind this endorsement. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon. I am Cleveland City Councilman Zach Reed, and it gives me a great honor and pleasure to stand here today with my brothers and sisters for justice. Because at the end of the day, this is what this is all about. When we look at the aspect that I introduced a resolution this past week on the floor of City Council asking the CPPA to rescind that endorsement of Donald Trump. And let us be clear. This is not whether or not they endorse Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. This is all about justice. This is not against a person who 61% of the people in this nation have called and said that they believe is a racist. This is not the fact that this is an individual who for years said the first African-American president of this United States was not legitimate.
Come on.
This is not the fact that this is an individual who says that we want to build a wall to keep Mexicans out. This is not against someone who says that we want to make sure that the Muslims show their papers. This is the fact that we, in this community, now are under a consent decree. And if you look at the foundation of that consent decree, it says one thing clearly: that the relationship between the police department and the African American community is completely broken. They didn't say that it was just broken, they said it was completely broken. And that we've got to interject trust back into that system. Well, you do not interject trust back into a system by endorsing someone who clearly has said to people of color that you deserve to stand over there and we're going to stand over here. So that's why I think this is bigger than just a press conference today.
Yes, sir.
I think this is bigger than just asking for them to rescind their endorsement. I think we all need to form a coalition and go to Judge Solomon Oliver,
Amen.
Chief Justice, and ask him to be removed from this commission. I mean, because you cannot have someone who has said publicly, not privately, publicly, that he doesn't believe anything's wrong.
That's right.
He doesn't believe that the relationship between the African American community and the police department is not broken. He says that I don't believe that there's a problem between the black community and the police department. I believe that he says that I believe our police are doing everything right. So how do you sit on a commission that is set up just for reforms, to make reforms, to make suggestions, to correct the wrongs of yesterday, to help people like Edward Henderson, who got their eye socket kicked out by police officers, and justice still has not been brought to those police officers. So he is sitting on a commission that basically he is poisoning that commission right now. Every day that he sits on that commission and people bring forth legitimate concerns and legitimate recommendations, he is sitting there saying no. So I'm calling on all of us, blacks, whites, Hispanic, male, female, clergy, elected officials, teachers, sanitary workers, all of us. If we believe in justice, we would all go to Solomon Oliver and ask him to remove him, because he is the only one that can remove him. You cannot have this individual sitting on that commission any longer.
That's right. That's right.
You cannot. I mean, it is an injustice. So if we want to do something, this is great and this is fantastic, and I'm gonna stand with my brother Lynn, because this takes courage what he's doing right here today. Because today he's still a police officer. Tomorrow he's gonna still be a police officer. So he's gonna catch hell within the ranks of that police force. So we're gonna have to not only stand with him today, we're gonna have to stand with him tomorrow. That's what I want to hear, Clyde. That's what I want to hear. We got his back. But this is about a bigger picture, people. We've got to change that police department. And that DOJ report gives us the roadmap to do it. But you cannot have people like Loomis sitting there as a barricade that stops us from going down this pathway towards justice. So I'm going to stand with you today, brother. I'm going to stand with you tomorrow. But I'm asking you guys to stand with me to go to Solomon Oliver, Chief Justice Solomon Oliver, and ask for Steve Loomis to be removed from the police commission.
Amen.
We gotta go.
The ministerial community is unified in this effort, and I'm a preacher, so the things that they've had to do politically correct, and because they are citizens and paid by tax dollars of the city of Cleveland, I kind of say a little bit more openly. One thing is for certain, and I've talked with many police officers. They have said that they were afraid to stand up against this because they were afraid that when they called out for help, help might not come. That's a dangerous place to be in when you're supposed to protect and to serve, and your brothers in blue are not there to help you because they have made a decision and they realize you do not agree with it. Councilman Reed has called for the Chief Justice to remove Mr. Loomis, but we're requesting him to just go on and resign. You've already made a statement that you're really not for the healing of our people or our community. You're really not for the position of making things better between the police department and our community. So someone must be there to represent the people who wants to do what must be done, what need be done. And as the president of the Black Shield is standing up for it, as the president of the NAACP is standing up for it, as a councilman, we've had two councilmen to come forward, Councilman Reed, two councilmen to come forward. We're looking for the rest to let us know, what are your feelings? Because this is one city. We are one people. Regardless of our color and our background, we must do what is necessary to live together, to work together, and to be able to work things out together. I'm praying that we will be able to reason with Mr. Loomis. Because yes, this is America, but you've got to respect all of Americans.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Very, very concerned. Everything that Mr. Loomis has said, not just in the recent past, but in the past period. Several things that have been said and done that we do not stand with him on as a community. The people that he's backing, especially in this great political race that's going on, that it's got us all scratching our heads now, wondering what's going to happen next, and his support for someone that would say that they are all for stop and frisk, things of that nature, which we know that will greatly affect us as a people more than anyone else. And so I greatly stand with Mr. Hampton and the Black Shield. I stand with my brothers and sisters here today. We are greatly concerned, and we are requesting, as Dr. Ward said, that he would step down.
Step down. Yes, sir.
And we call that do the right thing. Mr. Loomis,
Yeah.
just do the right thing.
Do the right thing. That's right.
At the pleasure of our mayor, Mayor Frank Jackson, and that we should add to the request to the judge, a request to the mayor that Steve Loomis be removed from the commission as well. I believe I got that correct. You got that correct? Do I have that correct?
That's right.
I'm not by myself when I say that. I'm
Right. Loomis gotta go.
All right.
Demand, not a request. Marcia McCoy. Given the divisive social climate that is permeating this nation, along with the myriad of issues that we, the national community, collectively face, we stand today in solidarity with the officers and members of Black Shield, Peace in the Hood, Black on Black, the Carl Stokes Brigade, and many other community racial justice organizations denouncing the Cleveland Police Union president's decision to endorse Donald Trump for president. Mr. Trump has demonstrated the absolute worst that represents America as he sought and garnered the Republican presidential nomination. Major news media publications have labeled him erratic, demagogic, and unpredictable with a questionable business ethic. We have duly characterized Mr. Trump as a candidate who speaks recklessly and has coarsened the national dialogue on race, sexism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, and immigration. He has preached from a pulpit of bigotry, hatred, and malice, has been reprimanded by members of his own party, and has been abandoned by the highest-ranking elected officer of the Republican Party, House Speaker Paul Ryan, who has totally withdrawn campaign support, even to the extent of disinviting Trump to a large fundraising event 30 days before the general election. He is diplomatically uninformed with regard to international affairs and has cheapened the discussion on equal rights for women with inappropriate sexual banter Trump has dismissed as locker room talk. With well over 50%, of the voting public possessing not only a vagina but a voter registration card, we American women join with this community to say not only bad endorsement, but dump Trump. We're asking Rice Priebus to withdraw this presidential nominee. Thank you.
Thank you.